Oh, hello, comrades. I am the infamous Orion, and I come back from re-education camp from Great President. Yes, welcome to the podcast show.
And I'm Cairo, and I'm still a little bit sick, so I can't do an accent like that.
Sometimes I feel like I'm kind of I don't know how to put this. Sometimes I feel like it can come off as offensive, but then I look at my last name and then I'm like, I can do it. I'm allowed to.
Like I had the thought immediately come up of like Comrade Cairo, but it's not gonna work. I would destroy what's left of my voice trying to do that, I think.
Dude, I have to get my voice down a few octaves, I feel, to pull that off. Yes, we talk about politics now. Yes, everything good. Everything is very good. I think we live in a perfect society, yes?
Yeah, nothing's wrong. If you think something's wrong, that's a you problem, and we have a fix for people like you.
Off to Florida re-education camp with you, yes? You have good time. How you been doing, Cairo?
It's been a week. It's been a year. That's the thing that I realized was that it's like we're pretty quickly coming up here on like a quarter of the way done with the year, and I keep waiting for the week where things like slow down, and it hasn't happened yet.
No.
People have to get tired eventually, right?
Well, that's what the golf trips are for.
Yeah, I guess so. I saw a great thing about that where apparently Trump has spent 6 of the last 7 weekends since resuming office at Mar-a-Lago golfing to the tune of something like $18 million in expenses, and how people love to point out that he doesn't take a salary. He only expenses $18 million worth of golf trips in the first month and a half.
Yes.
No salary taking there.
I think you forget, even the states allow for breaks to be taken, Cairo.
Mm-hmm.
I think you're being a little disingenuous. Off to the re-education camp with you. You have a good time. Bye.
Where did, I feel like the big story for this week that actually matters was the Supreme Court decision that went 5-4. Was it this one? Talking about USAID funding that is kind of wild. Because it wasn't even like talking about what USAID can or can't do, or what the executive is allowed to mandate or not. This was strictly contractual obligations that the United States already had for things that have already happened, where the US just has to pay people for the work that they already did. And it came down to a 5-4 decision. 5-4.
5-4. We're not dead just
44%
yet.
44% of the Supreme Court thinks that the United States government should be allowed to unilaterally just choose to not pay its debts.
Dude, do you know how fast the economy...
anything else?
Sorry.
Well, yeah, no, that's a great point, and we're going to talk about that because we've finally started to see the negative economic impact of the Trump administration's, or I'll give it a minute before I start swearing, but the Trump administration's rampant just messing around with the stock market in a way that's pretty suspicious, frankly. But, I it's the kind of thing where I suspect that there are people smarter than our government who are taking great advantage of the chaos that they're creating. And it would be funny if it wasn't so sad, seeing how extremely predictably cowardly they are with all of these, quote unquote negotiations.
Yeah. I think it is, in my opinion, market manipulation. I don't know how they're exactly profiting off this, but it feels very much like market manipulation.
At the bare minimum of it, right? They're
Yeah.
causing economic situations that have stock prices go down. They also have the power to remove those negative economic conditions at their will. So they can go and say, we're going to reinstate the tariff on Canada and Mexico. And we see, like we did this week, where the Dow goes down almost 4%. NASDAQ is down 7.7%. You have specific companies like NVIDIA who are down double digits since the start of the year. And they just go and buy those stocks. And then they go, oh, no, sorry, we're actually not going to do that anymore because we've had great negotiations where we will agree with these countries that they're going to do the things that they already agreed that they were going to do. And that's good governing to cause, people's retirement savings to drop 10% overnight for literally nothing. So we're going to cancel the tariffs again. Or we're going to delay them another 30 days. Whatever it is. And then the stock market goes back up. And oh my goodness. Now the stocks that they bought are worth 10% more. And they can sell them again. And they can make 10% on their money. And oh, no, it's 30 days later. We got to do the tariffs thing again. We got to do it.
They can only do this 45 more times.
Well, this year.
Well, 9 more times this year, but like 45 more times in general. They got to get their money's worth, dude.
Oh, no, they just keep doing it. I don't know. I think we have, now that they've tried to do it twice, it feels like we have gotten to the point where the actual, not the government idiots, but the Wall Street idiots are starting to catch on to what's happening, right? And the market has not recovered back from this last week's round of tariffs are back, actually they're not.
I've seen people clown on the idea that they're going to rent a hitman, and it's just paying bail for Luigi.
Nice. On that note, real quick, there are two stories that are important to mention in that regard. There was a shooting at an insurance CEO's house. I don't believe anybody was injured, though given the class climate surrounding that, it is worth noting that something happened there. There's also a story that broke out this morning about an armed individual on the White House grounds who was shot, I don't believe killed, and taken into custody. However, that is strongly suspected to be a situation where somebody was trying to do a suicide by cop kind of thing. Not any genuine political motivations beyond the, intent to be on the White House grounds with a firearm. So,
I mean, that's a fast way to do it.
Credit to the Secret Service, I guess. They didn't. From what I understood, they were taken into custody. So,
bunch of DEI Secret Service fuckers.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I thought this was America.
Wouldn't that be the greatest bit of kind of irony if, because of the Trump executive order where it was like anybody who shoots a cop gets the death penalty or whatever the fuck it was, if you have this dude who tries to do suicide by cop, it doesn't work, but they just get the death penalty anyways.
Well, isn't there like a UK law where it's like if you're found trying to commit suicide, you are going to be sentenced to death?
Yeah, something like that. That's one of those old common law kind of things, though. So it's take it with a grain of salt. It does technically exist, I suppose. Yeah, one of the things that has happened in this latest rounds of tariffs that I was very glad to see stick this time is that in the same way that the markets are not recovering after the last announcement, um, Canada's done. They have taken the gloves off. They are not backing down, and there has been multiple attempts by the current administration to remove parts of the tariffs that were put on Canada. Something like 38% of them were lifted already. But I specifically heard in a statement from oh God, what is his actual title? Ford. I don't remember what his role is because he's not prime minister. Premier of Ontario. That's what it is. Let's just be clear here in the first place. Ford is a giant piece of garbage of his own right. So none of this should be construed as praise for the individual. But he did put out a statement that basically was like, we're going to continue our plans to limit trade with the United States and start removing American products from our shelves until all of the tariffs are lifted. So whatever credit is due for that, that seems like, an actual negotiating tactic. And it has led to some very amusing scenes because Ontario has all of their alcohol controlled by what is known as the LCBO, the Liquor Control Board of Ontario, where in the province, you can't just go to like Walmart to buy your alcohol with your groceries. You have to go to standalone LCBO storefronts and basically buy all of your alcohol from the government. That way it is tightly controlled and regulated, and taxes are levied against it through that means. It also means that when you piss off the Ontario government by being American, they can very quickly go in and pull every American product off of their shelves in a day.
Those poor sons of bitches. Sorry.
We've been getting excellent images of actually bare shelves under the headings of like bourbon, where all that Kentucky bourbon is getting packed up and sent back to Jack Daniels, among other things. California wines all getting packed up and sent back. I don't know the exact measure of it, but I have seen it floating around where the Liquor Control Board of Ontario is, by some metric, the largest single distributor of alcohol in the world because of just how much coverage they have and how broad of control they have over anything related to alcohol in the province of Ontario.
That's kind of impressive, though.
It is. And seeing the consequences of it have been quite amusing.
I hate it when I have to lose a good portion of my GDP because I'm bored.
Yeah. But the other side of that is that when you look at like total sales, it's a drop in the bucket. One of the CEOs, I believe it was of Jack Daniels. Let me see if I can find this. Yeah, the CEO of Jack Daniels responded basically saying that this is worse than the tariffs, when it like mathematically is not. Just doing the numbers, it's not worse. Canada only accounts for 1% of their total sales. So it just isn't. The guy's wrong, and he's throwing a fit over, them losing 1% of their business because, like, it obviously looks bad for them. They're going to be feeling this for a long time.
Yeah.
But, yeah. We also had, I believe this was also an initiative from Doug Ford, where Canada supplies a not insignificant amount of energy to the United States. And I don't know if they went ahead with it, but they were certainly threatening to cut off that energy entirely until the tariffs were lifted, which would, I believe, largely impact the state of New York more than anything. Wouldn't that be funny, having a blackout at someplace like Trump Hotel as a direct result of Trump's ineptitude as a leader?
No, I'm down for it. Let New Yorkers suffer.
It'd be a great visual at the very least. In other Canadian news, we talked about this a little bit after the first wave of tariffs, but with the second one, it has strangely solidified the idea even more with just how much this political spat has worked out to the benefit of Canada's um, currently in power politicians, just in general, where the Trudeau government and their political party was at historic low levels of low levels of approval, where people were very unhappy with the government, in the same way that the average American was unhappy with the Biden administration, where they don't really care about the policy things as much as it is, for good and bad, a very selfish decision where things cost more now and people don't like that.
Damn.
Since the tariff spat, though, Trudeau's approval rating has gone up by 12 points since December, which is kind of huge for him, just like not doing much of anything. And it's obviously not a sure thing as to how that will translate longer term, because their elections aren't until October. It's a long time for things to happen. But if the American administration continues to keep their head shoved up each other's asses, it stands to reason that as long as the Canadian government can just stand there and look like actual adults in comparison, they might come out with a bit of a surprise turnaround. Or even if they don't come out with a full turnaround of it, this is certainly going to help mitigate their losses, if nothing else.
Very true. But we're always winning with Donnie, right?
Of course we are. Yeah. What else would we be doing?
We're definitely not losers. This is America.
It is a constant fascination for me seeing just the way that the average person seems to perceive things, just how skewed the typical perspective when it's so uninformed is.
Such is life. That's all I can say.
Yeah.
I just kind of grown to accept it. People have their own bullshit to worry about, so I can kind of,
Oh, yeah. And that's the thing, is it's easy for that to sound like an indictment, but I don't mean it to be, right? People have things going on in their lives, or people just also have, at a very baseline level, different capacities to stay engaged with certain high stress things, and this is extremely high stress. It's not easy to be thinking about and worrying about the future of your country on a daily basis,
Yeah.
Shit's stressful.
Dude, it only counts, really, for you to do that when you're on the quote-unquote menu.
Yeah.
Which, let's face it, there's a reason why certain people don't, they lean away or another because their relationship on the menu.
I have to hope that the way that Trump administration has been so aggressive and damaging in ways that are so obvious for the average person, I hope it gives people more of a push to stay informed. Yeah. Where you have the U.S. government is I'd have to double check. I'm pretty sure though it is the single largest employer of Americans. On average, the average person is more likely to have been a federal employee than anything else, just because the federal government is so large. They do so much, and people don't think about it in that way. There was an article going around about a Michigan, a national parks employee. I don't remember exactly what their role in it was, but it was forestry and management kind of thing. This individual was being interviewed because they were recently fired from their role within the federal government, being a probationary employee, and they had voted for Trump on the single platform of his promising to expand access to IVF treatment. And it's those kinds of direct consequences that I have to hope will make these people, force them to be more aware of what government does, how it impacts them both directly and indirectly. But I guess you never know.
You really don't.
There's going to be a non-zero percentage of people who are explicitly hurt by this. People who are going to lose their jobs, who will lose their Social Security or their insurance or their retirement, and will refuse in the face of any and all facts to accept the way that their political activity contributed to it.
Well, they're not the ones that fired themselves, damn you.
Yeah, it was Biden.
It was Biden's fault. He overinflated the government. God.
I have already seen that level of complete junk conspiracy type pure cope around the way that the Trump administration is damaging the economy, where people are trying to make the arguments that the reason that the Trump administration is doing such a poor job right now and causing such immediate harm to the economy is actually all intentional and calculated so that the economy can bounce back during the next election cycle and will be to their benefit at that point.
Do they know how long the fucking election cycle is going to be?
I don't know. That's also, I don't personally prescribe to this, but it's also under the assumption that there will be another cycle of elections. It also completely ignores the fact that there's midterms in 18 months where people are going to be up for election. And if people are unhappy with the current government, we saw with Biden. People don't care about why things are the way they are. If they know that the clothes that they're buying cost, $5 more and food at the grocery store isn't getting cheaper, they're either going to get apathetic or, more apathetic, or they're going to vote for the other guy because the other guy's the other guy.
I truly don't believe, I don't know. I don't think Donnie has that much of a platform to get a third term.
Oh, he doesn't at all. No. There would be no legal basis for it. It would be for lack of any other term or any better term for it. Any attempt to secure a third term for any president would be an act of pure rat fuckery and would not be excusable by any rational person.
I think that as much as they would love the fantasy of it, I think they're really fucking scared of a third term Obama.
Yeah, and they should be. Yeah. They should be fucking terrified of that.
I think the fact that as long as Obama's alive, there's no chance that they're going to go for that.
Yeah, and the reality of it, right? Trump has been golfing 6 out of 7 weekends. And I believe the one that he wasn't was because he had to do his stupid little State of the Union thing, right?
Yeah.
That's totally not the State of the Union. They got rid of that. The dude doesn't want to be president. He just doesn't want to be in jail. That's it. If he can navigate some way to, if they can, I won't be surprised if at the end of his term, they just do the self-pardon thing, right?
Yeah.
That's all they have to do. He pardons himself, and that act alone will easily have so much tied up in the courts that he's going to be dead before it gets decided, if it ever does.
I truly don't know if he's going to make it
Also,
all the way to the end of this last term. Sorry.
there's just the possibility that it goes to the Supreme Court and the Supreme Court goes like, yeah, the president can pardon themselves.
Yeah.
And that's just the world we live in now. Like, there's a non-zero chance of that happening. I would actually say that the odds of that are probably fairly good. And the only way that that doesn't happen is like we saw with this recent Supreme Court decision, where it ends up being, 5-4 with someone like Barrett, who it's insane to see turn around like this, being maybe a voice of reason on the Supreme Court now. We started to see a glimmer of this last summer when they were in their decision-making terms, and there was another decision, I think there's maybe even two of them, that came out at like 6-3 or 5-4, where you had Roberts, Barrett, and maybe Gorsuch in joining with the liberal justices in the majority opinion. And you had Barrett writing these opinions where it's like, makes sense. And I saw some good analysis of like what is Barrett's role on the Supreme Court, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the analysis that I did see basically boiled down to Barrett was only ever elected or appointed to the Supreme Court by Trump as a sort of like handshake over the table to the evangelical Christian community, specifically, not the nationalist Christian community, right? Even though there's a lot of overlap there, she is there with the express purpose of being another vote to overturn abortion on a national level. And that is it. And we're starting to see the fruition of that, where it's like, oh yeah, she's still, a relatively well-educated person and understands that the Constitution probably shouldn't be thrown under a massive bus that's also on fire.
So what you're saying is...
personally... Yeah, please.
No, I was going to make a joke about Donnie getting rid of her.
Yeah. Well, yes. So that was the thing. Let me see if I can find it. There's a discussion in the r/law subreddit that was specifically talking about, like, what is her role going to be? Why is she doing this? Because there's discussion about all these like veteran legal conservatives coming to her defense amidst the backlash for her siding with Roberts and the liberal justices in this recent thing. That was exactly what I said. Barrett is a very thinly veiled surrogate to rule on behalf of the interests of Christians, but if she's willing to at least hold off the insanity threatening our country long enough to preserve the Constitution, I will happily take her help until the threat is no longer existential. If something was to happen to her, it is very clear at this point that her replacement would be the death knell of the Constitution. Because they're not going to risk having this happen again. They're going to put the biggest, most pathetic yes man. Like, imagine, I know it's hard, but imagine if Kavanaugh was somehow more pathetic.
Actually, I was about to say, you talking about Justice Musk?
Yeah. I mean, is that the furthest thing from possibility? I don't think so.
I don't see...
I don't think it would happen. Musk wouldn't want it, because he doesn't... That's the thing, right? He doesn't want to actually work. And while the Supreme Court, by and large, doesn't, there is still, like, 3 months out of the 12 that they have to do a job. And 3 months is more work than Musk has ever worked in his life.
Dude, he's got to go and get his video game records.
Yeah, I love that. People joking about how they're going to have to move a gaming PC into the White House for him so he can keep up his PoE 2 titles.
It's cute that they think he's in the White House.
Well, he is. Like he moved in there with his child. They have accommodations in the actual White House now.
Are you fucking kidding me?
No. That's the level of insanity that we're at, where a billionaire CEO to like 5 fucking companies is literally crashing on the couch of the president. It's wild. It is. Again, if it wasn't so destructive and pathetic, it'd be really funny because it's so pathetic.
I'm sorry, I'm just kind of amazed.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's where we are now. Thankfully, with all that in mind, there was some good news this week. We obviously have the Supreme Court decision that while it was 5-4, and that is far too narrow to be settling, it was 5-4. They did rule that the United States government, after, Congress has made their decision and that, obligations have already been made, that the government does need to honor those obligations and just pay the people that they already have contracts that are complete with. So that was good. We also had a judge. Which one was he? I do not want your pop-ups. Federal judge. They don't say their name. It doesn't matter ultimately. They're a federal judge. They permanently have reinstated Kathy Harris to her position on the Merit Systems Protection Board, which is, basically one of the civil service review boards that determines whether like hirings and firings are ethical or legal, right? They determined that this person was unlawfully fired by Trump, and we've seen other similar cases of individuals being reinstated to their positions within the federal government after having been illegally fired by Trump's administration. So it's hard to find, but there is good news out there on occasion. Unfortunately, we have some other stuff to go through that's a little bit mostly just bullet point stuff highlighting the stupidity and incompetence of the current administration, which in a sort of I don't know what the right word for it is. I've lost it, but it's obviously not good. But I find covering it to be sort of perversely enjoyable still,
Yeah.
It's like, look at the dumpster fire. It's so bright. Last weekend, the U.S. Treasury Department said that it will no longer be enforcing anti-money laundering laws.
No.
Party of Law and Order, right?
They're talking about the TV show, right?
Maybe. That would make sense.
Doesn't it, though? Because
much more so than the promises that they claim to be running on. We also, earlier today, I believe it was, 20 hours ago, the Department of Health and Human Services sent out a message to all employees offering them a $25,000 voluntary buyout offer.
It's called a severance package, good sir.
I don't actually think it is in this case.
Really?
Because it's voluntary, right?
I suppose.
It's weird and it's dumb, and on top of everything else, doesn't make sense if you're like a federal government worker, given that it's voluntary, because if you stay a federal worker, you get like a really good pension. And you get really good benefits, and you get a job that pays you money. And beyond all of that, it's very likely that this offer is just, on its face, illegal.
Man, it is going to go hard in the courts 3 years from now.
It is not illegal. It is part of a program known as the Voluntary Separation Incentive Payments for federal employees, and it has not been cost adjusted in decades, which is why it is so pathetically low.
Elon could even add like a couple of grand to each one just to kind of sweeten the deal.
You'd think, right? They're supposed to be these genius businessmen, but they've been finding every opportunity that they can to just suck. In other news, I don't know if did I share you with this, the February jobs numbers.
No, you did not.
I found this to be quite fascinating. We have the job numbers in for February, preliminarily at least. They're probably going to be revised as, we get more complete pictures of the information as the month goes on. But preliminarily, last February was the worst month on record for job creation since 2009. Nothing
Even
happened
COVID?
before 2009. Yeah, yes, worse for job creation than during COVID.
Are you fucking kidding me?
It was also the only February on record. Maybe I have to double check. I believe it was the only month on record, but it may have been the only February on record where the job creation was as low as it was that was not during a recession.
Well, one's
Which
coming
basically
up.
was, 2008 and the COVID period.
Yeah.
But yes, that is exactly it, where given this being an indicator, there's a lot of people who are really concerned about this as being like the canary in the coal mine kind of thing, where these numbers are unprecedented at any time that we aren't in a recessionary period. And the fact that we're having them now and we're not in a recession kind of indicates that we're either like in a period of rampant incompetence, which we are, or that we're on the precipice of a recession that could be worse than what we saw during like COVID.
Hey,
Very
doggy.
encouraging. There's also a lot of information here where we saw like the unemployment rate went up, and it's like, it's almost like the federal government fired a bunch of people and they don't have jobs anymore. I wonder if that matters for employment statistics and the health of the economy.
Anyway, when the housing market crashes, I'm so excited I'm going to be able to use my savings for something finally.
Finally.
I mean, the interest rates are going to suck, but let's hope I get a good deal.
Well, so that's the thing, though, right? It's kind of counterintuitive where once the market goes to shit, the interest rates tend to go down to entice people to put their money back into the economy.
That's fair. That's fair. That's fair.
Yeah. So, like, interest rates right now suck, but they are better than they were a few years ago, thankfully. So, hopefully that continues to happen. It was hilarious. I don't think I mentioned on the program, but I'm actually starting the process of like buying a house and not renting anymore. And part of that was going through a Michigan program where they have you go through like a little online course thing. And the examples they give of like, here's financial things that you can mess with to look at like what a down payment looks like and interest rates and put your own information in to see what it looks like for you are hilariously out of date, where their like default average house price is still $180,000.
Dude, you can't even get a trailer that long.
Their interest rate was at 3.5%.
Fuck you.
Current interest rates at the absolute rock bottom are almost at 7% right now. Hilariously out of date. And I get why they haven't touched it because they don't fucking care. But it was like, wow, you haven't done anything with this since like 2015, have you?
Yes.
A really notable index on that point as to just how much more expensive the average house price has gotten. Here in the great state of Michigan, we have a down payment assistance program that has a limit as to when it no longer applies based on the sale price of the house that you're buying. And it hasn't been updated since 2009. Currently, the limit for what the average price of a house was when it was made was set at $225,000. So if the house that you're trying to buy was more than that, you didn't apply for this down payment assistance program. In May, they're going to be updating it for the first time in over a decade in order to reflect the fact that things have happened and things are more expensive now. Do you want to take a guess? Because they're adjusting it basically to the same metric, right? It'll be adjusted to match what like the middle house price is based on sales, and it is thankfully because we have Democratic leadership and they're not fucking incompetent. They've included in this bill means for it to self-regulate as the market changes, so they won't have to go and pass new legislation later in order to have it continue to update to what the actual price of houses are. But do you want to take a guess what the average house price is?
400,000.
No.
Don't you
You're
dare
low.
say higher.
You're low by double-digit percentages.
Go on, tell me.
Let me see if I can find the exact number here. 510,000.
So how much does this glorious socialist state that we live in give you?
So they will give you a $10,000 loan to assist in a down payment for first-time home buyers that is only repaid if you sell your house before your loan is paid off or some other things that can happen. But if you pay your loan to completion, you do not have to pay the loan back. It is forgiven at the end of that period.
I fucking love this state.
Yeah, it's super helpful. It's the kind of thing where it's like just going from 0 to 10, it helps you with cutting back on mortgage insurance by like double.
Yeah.
It's so good.
Like, gang.
No.
Mortgage insurance is kind of a scam.
It is, though thankfully it is starting to wane. It's not nearly as predatory as it used to be.
Oh, no, dude. Okay, I might be speaking because I see it a lot more, but I've seen some pretty predatory practices in my time.
Oh, absolutely. They exist. It's just the kind of thing where if you have the privilege, I guess you could say, to be able to shop around to different mortgage offerers, you can usually get a pretty good deal where you're not going to be able to get rid of it unless you have like 20% down, which who the fuck does, but it's not as backbreaking as it used to be, where it was like for a long time it was basically like, do you have 20% to put down on a home? No, go fuck yourself.
That's my goal. 20% up front. I would like that. Yeah.
It's considered the standard, but it Mark gets effed. Last piece of, I'd say, real news that I'd like to go through this week is Governor of California, Gavin Newsom, decided to start a podcast. His first guest on said podcast was far right-wing influencer / grifter Charlie Kirk.
Yeah.
As part of that podcast, they decided to talk about trans people, specifically girls and women's sports.
Because they never talk about the men in men's sports.
Nope. It's because they don't actually care. They just want political points. I don't have much to say on this other than to point out that Newsom is just as much of a slime ball as pretty much all of the rest of the Democratic leadership that we have right now, barring, AOC, Sanders, Al Green. There's some notable exceptions, but it is very unfortunate that they are exceptions and not the party leadership themselves.
Dude, like the only difference is like which ones are willing to put on like a pride pin.
At this point, it seems like it. And this June is going to be really pathetic. Guarantee it.
I meant to say the difference between a Republican and a Democrat is which one's more willing to put on a pride pin.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, no, I know. But I'm saying in this June, I think we're going to see that change. And we're going to see a lot of Democrats basically becoming Republicans light because they don't understand the role that they play in politics.
I was so did you read through that AMA I gave you from the political correspondent at the New York Times?
I skimmed it. Yeah. I didn't find it as helpful as you did, I don't think. Granted,
okay, I've gotten a little more complicated with it because it does read a little like don't fucking ask me. Don't ask me.
it's hard because the particular individuals involved with it are not representatives of their company, right? They can only speak to the things that they work on, but the things that people want to know are questions as to how is the rest of the company, their paper, comfortable just sitting there letting these things happen, neutering their own reporting, and the instances where they tried to address those concerns were very underwhelming.
What I was more appreciative of was just the more candid political commentary on there.
Oh yeah, that part of it was good, and there was some legitimately good, just that's something that Reddit, with all of the problems that it still has, is still quite good at, is facilitating genuine AMAs like that.
Yeah, because it gave me a new perspective of the Dems lately. Like, they are a party with literally no ideas that are very divorced from the idea of what their voter base wants. And I'm gonna expand that a little bit more. They don't know what normal people want.
Yeah.
Yeah. It is a lot of old money oligarchs who are just there to continue the tradition of the party itself.
There was a great clip going around earlier this week that I believe was from a podcast appearance with Hakeem Jeffries, where he actually said that they have the Republicans on the run.
Where?
Good question.
To the banks? Because that's what they're doing. They're running to the banks. You're right.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just... It's so frustrating to see them constantly try and bend over backwards for some mythical centrist voter that doesn't exist.
No, they're just praying for that third term grant to come in, just so that they can send Obama in again, because that's literally the only thing they've got.
That has been one of the most frustrating aspects of these last few months, is seeing how unprepared Democratic leadership is for a second Trump presidency. They're just doing nothing. And it's so sad. Like, even if you had nothing until the end of the election, you've still had 2 months to figure out what you were going to do. And you didn't do that.
On the federal level, yeah, but I do appreciate the state level stuff that's been going on.
Oh yeah, the state level stuff has always been much more competently handled than the federal level.
Yeah. Truthfully, I am very... I've come to... it's a begrudging respect has come out of me for the Republican Party, and how I appreciate now how they actually do pay attention to like the normals a little bit more than I thought. I just really hate how well they could do it.
A mixed bag, though, because they have the luxury of one of the largest news conglomerates ever being the one that dictates what the concerns are for those normal people.
Oh, yeah. I think the term is manufacturing consent.
Yeah, it's a good way of putting it, for sure. There was the one thing in the reporting of Newsom's cowardice that I thought was quite interesting. And I did a quick double check to see if this was legitimate, because it's just like, that's a pretty incredible statistic. So in the good state of Michigan, the MHSAA, which is Michigan like High School Athletic Association, I believe, something like that.
Yeah.
They also cover like junior high and other, but like sub-collegiate sports broadly. They have a system for Michigan athletics where if a transgender girl wants to play in a girls' sport, they have a waiver that can be submitted to, sort of validate that request, where you just send it into the MHSAA. I don't know what the requirements are, so maybe it's like a program that isn't really functional or whatever, but it exists. In the last 5 years, out of the more than 170,000 high school athletes in Michigan, do you want to take a guess how many waivers they've received in the last
7?
5 years? No, less.
4.
2. They have received 2 whole waivers in the existence, basically, of the program. They have received none for the current school year. This is such a great example of the non-existence of the problem that the Republican Party has managed to make a cornerstone of their platform, and then from that start exposing the pure spinelessness of people like Newsom in their willingness to bend over and acquiesce to a political position that is practically non-existent. Just pure fear-mongering over something that does not exist in any meaningful way.
So, Gavin, if you want to come onto the podcast and describe like how you would retort to this, please contact us at our email.
Yeah. In the same vein, I also saw a really good post on Blue Sky. I think I reposted it, so I should be able to find it pretty quickly here. But it was because, International Women's Day just happened. So thank you to all women for being women.
I'll have you women know I like the Barbie movie. We're all cool.
Yeah.
God.
But there's a really great post that went up that was talking about, like, why do women's sports exist, right? Because there's this really pervasive modern idea that women's sports exist to give women a space that is safe from men so that they don't get, embarrassed by men being better, where historically that's not fucking true. So there's a really good piece talking about this on here where they pointed out 2 specific examples. One from 1902 at the Figure Skating World Championships, which were at the time considered to be for men only, when a woman, Madge Sears, showed up and took home the silver medal. Afterwards, they decided that they just needed a women's only category. And then again, in 1992, at Olympic skeet shooting, where Zhang Shan took the gold medal, and then afterwards, we got a women's only event. And there's probably some portion of that has a validity in creating a space for women to be able to participate in these sports more broadly so that they can foster interest and excitement and broader support for it. But it sure is fucking coincidental that it just happened after a woman went and beat a whole bunch of men at their own sport.
I think there is that misconception that guys just having a more physical build for muscle automatically equates to better sports performance.
Definitely.
I want to call bullshit on that. Just as someone who runs, like, I have learned how much my weight impacts my running. And you know who tend to weigh a little bit more than, like, guys?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we have Usain Bolt, don't get me wrong. There's still, like, advantages to being a guy. But,
for
like,
sure. It is also a fact that modern sports that are so skewed to favor men are also sports that have been built up for decades, if not centuries, to cater to men. So, of course, they're going to favor them because the rules have been built around men's physiques and men's bodies.
Yeah. I think, again, there's, like, this misconception that muscle makes for better performance altogether.
Yeah. Last piece I wanted to mention on it, one of the headlining comments that sparked the thread talking about the various specific athletes who have, defied gender norms, and as a result, women's ended up being sequestered into their own space, literally segregated. I really appreciated their sentiment that women's sports are kept separate from men's, not to protect women from always losing to men, but to ensure that no man ever loses to a woman.
Hell yeah. What the fuck?
With that, let's talk some movies.
What movies are we going to talk about?
We actually have quite a few releases this week. Most of them aren't worth much more than a mention, but there's some cool stuff. So, start off with some of the smaller ones here. Excuse me. One that I want to bring up just because it is too absurd not to is a French comedy sci-fi adventure drama called L'Empire or The Empire. It's not doing well. It's about a 50% for critics and audiences, but I just want to read the synopsis because it's too fun not to. And to be clear from the onset, this is a very explicit, intentional parody / ripoff of Star Wars. In a quiet and picturesque fishing village in northern France, something finally happens. A special baby is born. A child so unique and peculiar that it unleashes a secret war between extraterrestrial forces of good and evil. In an attempt to restore their empires, two opposing forces from the depths of outer space, 1 and 0, unleash an apocalyptic conflict on Earth. Demons of the Zero forces covertly take over the village locals, possessing their bodies in order to establish pandemonium on Earth. At the same time, a new species of creature formed by the Ones is working for an alternative and beneficial evolution. While waiting for the final battle, the Imperial legions struggle to win humanity over to their cause. A slapstick intergalactic space opera from the singular mind of auteur Bruno Dumont. The Empire is a dramatic blockbuster spectacle and a comedic tour de force that pits good against evil. 1 against 0 in a fabulous tale of the forces that shape the world and humans into what they are. And yeah, it's a lot of bad CGI. And some probably okay comedy. But like... Let me see if I can send you one of these pictures because it's just like, yeah, that's a dude on a green screen, all right. All right. Next one.
That looks like fucking Rise of Skywalker.
Doesn't it?
Oh,
I'm sure it's mostly on purpose, but yeah, it's pretty blunt.
Pretty sure that's the fucking color palette too.
Other movies, we have Rule Breakers. In a nation where educating girls is seen as rebellion, a visionary woman dares to teach young minds to dream. Where their innovation draws global attention, their success sparks hope and opposition. As threats loom and sacrifices are made, their courage and unity ignite a movement that could forever transform the world. I believe this is titled as a drama, but this seems strongly based on the real stories of educating women in Middle Eastern countries, particularly places like Afghanistan.
Okay.
Oh yeah. Doing extremely favorable in the review space, 79 from critics, 96 from audiences. Not enough for either to be like certified yet, but for what seems to be a relatively smaller movie, though it does have Phoebe Waller-Bridge as one of the leads on it, so credit there. There's clearly some push behind it, but yeah, doing fairly well. We also have Queen of the Ring. An extraordinary true life tale that follows Mildred Burke, the legendary professional wrestler and single mother who defied incredible odds to become the first $1 million female athlete and longest reigning champion at a time when the sport was banned across most of America. This is a biographical drama detailing her life and career.
Holy shit, how topical.
Yeah. All right. Now we get into the more mainstream stuff. Man, this first one's pretty disappointing. We've been Dave Bautista stans for a while here, I think it's safe to say. And it's quite unfortunate to see him have a headlining role in a movie that did so poorly. In the Lost Lands.
That is a boring ass title. Sorry.
It really is. The synopsis is so much worse. It is so generic. Directed by Paul W.S. Anderson and based on George R.R. Martin's short story, the story centers on a queen who, desperate to fulfill her love, makes a daring play. She sends the powerful and feared sorceress, Ray Alice, to the ghostly wilderness of the Lost Lands in search of a magical power, where the sorceress and her guide, the drifter Boyce, must outwit and outfight man and demon. It looks really bad. Like, let me see if I can send you this cover, because it's just shit. It looks terrible.
He looks like he's having fun though. I'm kind of impressed.
I hope he had fun with it, because 17% from critics.
Ouch.
One of the top critics from the Tribune news service, Katie Walsh, says, "Is this a real movie? I'm not entirely certain, and I certainly don't recommend watching it. But I am amused by the bizarre Anderson Jovovic of year, and hope they keep cranking them out." Another one, a threadbare film that barely resembles an idea.
I think there's an idea in there. There's skulls and guns, so death. I see an idea of death in there.
One of these other reviews, I didn't know Rotten Tomatoes was able to show a rating this low. Apparently you can have a 0.5 out of 4 rating on Rotten Tomatoes.
Hell yeah.
Moving on to one of the actual, good movies that came out this week. Mickey 17, directed by the director of Parasite, Bong Joon-ho, starring Robert Pattinson in the lead. Mickey 17, known as an expendable, goes on a dangerous journey to colonize an ice planet. We talked about this one, I believe, in the sort of preview for 2025 when we were going through movies that were coming out, and the notable parts of this were basically that it has Bong Joon-ho and Robert Pattinson in kind of his, current, more modern arc of trying to establish himself as more of a real actor post-Twilight. It seems like it's doing fine. 79% from critics, 73% from audiences. One of the negative reviews from a top critic, Stephanie Zacharek from Time. Neither funny, moving, or sharp, the time may feel right for a wry dystopian sci-fi adventure comedy, but as satires go, this one is more mild than Habanero.
Damn.
From Joseph Robinson of Fish Jelly Films, Mickey 17 is an ambitious spectacle, one that is darkly humorous and oddly touching. So, a bit mixed, mostly positive, but definitely not living up to the very lofty heights set by the director's previous works.
I do get the impression this film just has a pedigree where it couldn't go wrong, but there's nothing to make it stand out.
This is the kind of thing where I would fully expect that I will see this at some point still. It has the right, pieces where I know that I'll find something enjoyable out of this. It's just going to be a question of whether I want to pay movie theater prices to see it or wait a while and do it some other way.
I see it.
Part of the reasons why this is, why I found it to be such an interesting project at the start is that the whole Expendables thing is the idea that Pattinson's character is kind of I don't know the full details if it's androids or clones or whatever, but the idea that there's multiple versions of himself doing whatever this thing is that needs to happen, and that there's certain parts where there are scenes where it's just him having a shot to shot thing or a shot reverse shot that's him talking to himself, right? And there's a novelty there that I think could be very fun, but doesn't seem like it's quite stuck to landing.
I do see that novelty thing you're talking about.
Yeah. Moving on from there, we have one that technically doesn't release until next weekend, but early previews are out, early critic reviews are in. and it's not great. So we're going to talk about it. The Electric State. You brought this one up to my attention. I will say the synopsis for this is fucking huge. So I'm just going to read through it, but it's like a proper paragraph. So it's going to be a lot. The Electric State is a spectacular adventure from directors of Avengers Endgame, the Russo brothers, set in an alternate retro-futuristic version of the 1990s. Millie Bobby Brown stars as Michelle, an orphaned teenager navigating life in a society where sentient robots resembling cartoons and mascots who once served peacefully among humans now live in exile following a failed uprising. Everything Michelle thinks she knows about the world is upended one night when she's visited by Cosmo, a sweet, mysterious robot who appears to be controlled by Christopher, Michelle's genius younger brother whom she thought was dead. Determined to find the beloved sibling she thought she had lost, Michelle sets out across the American Southwest with Cosmo and soon finds herself reluctantly joining forces with Keats, a low-rent smuggler, and his wisecracking robot sidekick Herman. As they venture into the Exclusion Zone, a walled-off corner in the desert where robots now exist on their own, Keats and Michelle find a strange, colorful group of new animatronic allies and begin to learn that the forces behind Christopher's disappearance are more sinister than they ever expected. Also notable for this movie, it has a $320 million budget and a ridiculous cast list associated with it to pay for it.
You remember how I said like it had a Mickey 17 had a pedigree too big to kind of fail?
Yep.
This had a pedigree too big to succeed.
Absolutely. I'm just going to read through some of this because it is wild. Obviously, we have Millie Bobby Brown. We also have Chris Pratt as the other lead. Also featured Kehe Kwan, Stanley Tucci, Woody Norman, Giancarlo Esposito, Woody Harrelson, Anthony Mackie, Brian Cox, Jenny Slate, Alan Tudyk, Hank Azaria, Rob Gronkowski for some reason. It's too much for what this is. I don't understand why how do streaming services make money? You know, it doesn't make sense. I'm curious to do the math on this now.
I truly believe they're money laundering these fuckers sometimes. There's no way that much. Okay, the budget for like all the actors, I'm more than sure that's like 80% of it, but 20% of that money was laundered.
So Netflix is currently $18 a month for a standard subscription. To pay, okay, and the other question is, how many subscribers does Netflix have? What are they at right now? About 300 million paid subscribers. So to pay for just this movie, they have to dedicate approximately, what does that work out to? Calculator. Almost more than 10% of their entire income to just this one movie. If I'm an executive at Netflix, I have to wonder, why are we doing this when we could just pay ourselves another $320 million? What's the point?
Can I just make another comparison here?
Yeah.
How much is like the average TV show budget per episode?
Oh, it's all over the place. Do you want? If you give me like a specific one, I can look it up.
I'm just trying to think how many episodes of television could you have made from this movie, and then you release that weekly, and then you can get your money back and then some.
Actually,
so apparently,
funny comparison.
It ranges from about 3.1 million to 1 billion. So I'm just going to take the 3.1 million for like a small scale TV show. Yeah.
I was going to say you could make about 3/5 of a Secret War. Or a Secret Invasion, whatever it is. The Marvel TV show.
There's no way that was 1 billion.
No, but it was like 400 million or something like that.
Are you fucking... They use fucking AI?
Yeah. Let me double check. Maybe that's Google AI bullshit summary being wrong. Secret Invasion budget.
212 million.
224 maybe.
That's not even with marketing. Holy fuck.
Yeah, it was a massive flop. But even then, they made a whole TV show at about 2/3 the price. And like a Marvel TV show. That's not cheap.
No wonder they got Robert Downey Jr. back. Holy fuck.
Yeah. Yeah, they're desperate. Yeah, I'm seeing the same thing. It looks like successful TV series typically have a per episode production cost from between $3 to $15 million. So even at the high end of a normal TV series, you could make like what? Let's assume a 10 episode run because that's easy. You could make 2 very expensive TV series seasons for the same price as this one flop movie.
Then just release the episodes weekly. You get your money back.
Yeah.
Yeah, because people don't stay
if you
for
have
those.
people who only want to watch that one thing, if it's a TV series, they have to pay for multiple months. If it's this, they're going to pay once, and they're going to leave.
They're going to use the free trial. What are you fucking talking about?
Well, even worse, right?
Yeah. Dude, it doesn't take much to make a 5-second email account. Like a 10-minute
really
email.
doesn't.
Yeah. Like, okay. So here's the thing, right? Pulling back some of the curtain of my own music business right here.
Yep.
All my music is free. I let people tip me and whatnot. The only stipulation I do is I require an email address to send a link to download stuff. But it's also to get you attached to it, like to offer a newsletter over to you. So like, okay, it's just promotion for future work and whatnot. You know how many motherfuckers, and they don't know I know this, you know how many motherfuckers I get using 10-second email accounts to fucking download my music for free?
Yeah.
It is amazing to me. I'm not upset about it. I'm just more, what's the word I'm looking for? Astonished about how common the practice is.
Yeah. I wonder, have you seen in the world of AI scraping and all that, have you seen an uptick in it?
What do you mean?
People doing that behavior of using like botted email accounts, basically?
Believe it or not, no, I have not.
Interesting.
Yeah. I'm a little flattered by the fact that AI isn't pirating my music, but at the same time, I'm a little upset AI is not pirating my music.
I guess on the other side of that, though, they could just like scrape the whole server and skip all of that entirely. Right?
I've got stuff like on Spotify and YouTube, Apple Music and whatnot, so I'm guessing they probably go through there because that's a more dedicated music library.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. Which I get royalties on that, so I'm fine with that.
Last piece that I wanted to go through. I heard about and confirmed for myself this week that there is an actual Spaceballs sequel currently in development at Amazon. It has Josh Gad starring as one of the leads and Mel Brooks producing it.
Can we pause for a second? You had me, and then you said Amazon, which you did not tell me before the show. So, fuck you, Kyril.
Amazon MGM. Okay, so it's like the whole studio.
It's a Weekend at Bernie's studio. Got it.
Yes. We know at this point that there is a first draft of the script. People who've read it have been really happy with it, though that this is all, the same sort of pre-production bullshit that you're not going to say, oh, we had the first draft of the script and it fucking sucks. Go see our movie. Right? That's just not how it works. But the fact that this still has Mel Brooks attached to it, he's been very vocal in the past where he's like, he's not going to do this unless he has very specific criteria met for it. Apparently there was also at some point that Brooks said that the working title he wanted for it was Spaceballs 3, The Search for Spaceballs 2, The Search for More Money. So like, it's obviously not perfect, but there's a glimmer here where it's not a giant pile of shit.
I am excited to see what they do. I think they have potential. Then you told me fucking Amazon was involved, so now I'm
Yeah.
skeptical and it's all hell.
I know. I. Yeah. Yep.
Uh, by the way, since we're shitting on Amazon at the moment, did you get the article I just sent you?
I did.
So Amazon's Prime Gaming's former VP admits that they can't fucking compete against Valve, which I think is fucking hilarious.
It's been fascinating to see the same thing happen with Epic too, right? Where they're like literally giving away thousands of dollars in games to people every year, and they still don't have market cap beyond their own exclusives, right? Like Fortnite. If Fortnite didn't exist, they'd be so dead in the water.
Dude. Okay. So I'm on Prime Gaming's website right now.
Yeah.
Just trying to get a vibe of what their market offers.
Yeah.
There's nothing on here.
No. It's devoid. The only thing that you should ever go out to Prime Gaming for is to get the codes that they give for free games to play on other services.
Dude, there's like a million free games on here. And like, it's all stuff you can get anywhere else.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, the only reason that people ever go there is because those things are free, where they're, not necessarily free in other places.
They're so lucky if they can buy a country, because otherwise anybody else would just go bankrupt off this.
Yeah, it's wild. It's the thing that I don't understand. Like, why are you guys doing this? This has to be losing you money. Just like surface level, it doesn't make sense. It's the same thing with like streaming services like Peacock, right?
Dude,
why?
it would make I think speaking as a guy in the insurance industry, I think about actuarial risk a lot, believe it or not. So like fucking actuarially speaking, you have more of a consistent, like this is me going at Peacock more, you have more of a steady streaming platform of just licensing your shit out to other distributions like Netflix than to just hoard the fucking Office on Peacock. And then people never... Okay, you lose out on people because people aren't going to pay for a fucking subscription for one show. Yep. You lose out on merch sales. You have to pay for the damn hosting yourself. Like, it just makes sense to just go with the licensing and then just license out merch. Yeah. That is a fine business model.
I wonder if it is actually like the modern version of the philanthropy that we saw in like the 1910s and 20s, where if the actual amount of wealth that the primary endeavors that these companies and conglomerates were making was being shown without having these massive without having these massive losses tacked on top of it, it would be so grotesque that people would have no choice but to revolt against them. So they're fine pissing away a few $1 billion or a few $100 billion a year on stuff like Peacock streaming or Prime Gaming or Meta VR or the fucking metaverse, because it hides the obscene amount of wealth that they actually have. It obscures it.
No, you're right, though. I feel like every company goes into a fuck-ass video game phase.
Yeah.
And I don't think they've ever expected anything to go right with that.
I think, because it was actually something that you posted in the Discord earlier today about Elon's super rich ex-wives who hate their former spouses should be filed. Or sorry, should filed be listed? I don't know what he's actually trying to say there. Should be listed among reasons that Western civilization died. That is a very clear dig at Bezos's ex-wife, who has Mackenzie Scott, who's been using her acquired vast wealth after her divorce with Bezos for like actual humanitarian purposes. And she's talked about it where the sheer process of like vetting a company, or not vetting a company, vetting a nonprofit to make sure that they're like on the up and up, and then giving them money is still not coming anywhere close to spending all of the money that she has now. from being made a billionaire overnight in the divorce. And I have to imagine a part of it is that these like idiot tech bros have devised these elaborate schemes of sequestering their finances and obscuring their income and deferring their taxes. And then they see this woman who they hate because they're a woman, of course, just come out and be just like, yeah, I'm just going to give this money to charities. And there's like, you can't do that. You got to work for it and hide it better. Like, imagine how much better the world would be if chuds like Elon Musk just gave away the fucking absurd amounts of money they had rather than trying to hide it all the time. Just give it to a charity.
Like, dude, you're not going to spend it in your lifetime.
People actually like you that way. You don't have to pretend to have people like you. People will genuinely like you for the individual that you are by just helping people who need help. Dude, it's not hard.
Remember when he said he was going to pay for world hunger to end and then he jumped out of it?
And then he never did.
What a bitch. Dude, like, what's the word? When Elon dies, I am so excited to watch the succession war happen between like all 14 of his kids for the money.
Yeah.
It is going to be bloody.
The one silver lining about the stock market collapses and just the economy doing incredibly poorly is that year to date, Tesla stock has gone down by 31%. From what I understand, that has basically halved Elon Musk's net worth.
Good.
So, yeah. He's lost $122 billion.
That's more money I'll make in my life.
Something like 80% of Tesla sales in Europe have just disappeared. Because people are so tired of his shit, particularly in Germany.
You see, this is another thing I don't understand with Elon's market. Why is he getting into fucking politics? A very polarizing field, mind you. Doing everything he can to, like, get short-term gains, and then preventing his companies from ever growing ever again.
Oh, you see, it's very simple. He's an idiot that's been propped up by smarter people his entire life, and every company that he's touched with his own powers has quickly turned to shit.
Like, dude, it doesn't make sense to me. The whole point of capitalism is to grow like a fucking tumor. But here you are, just wiping your ass with the U.S. Constitution and expecting the rest of the world to, like, buy that as your, you know, A, brand, B... The U.S., as great as we are, because we're pretty fucking great. I don't know if you heard we're great again all of a sudden.
Yeah, what happened with that?
Dude, I don't fucking get it. But, like, when we're not spending a fuck ton of money on eggs, our GDP is actually pretty fucking high. But it ends. Yeah. It ends. We have a limit. You know who doesn't have a limit as low as us? China. Fucking India. Mm-hmm. All of fucking Europe, and you're telling me you're going over there using their fucking no words in their fucking I'm sorry, not no words. You're saying highline in front of Europe and expecting your profits to grow? Fuck you.
No. Yeah, they're very dumb people who have been told that they're very smart and special by everyone surrounded by them because they happen to have been born extremely wealthy. And it's gone on for so long that they've internalized that and they believe it and they won't accept anything to the contrary. Because that's the reality of at least Elon Musk's situation, right? Is that the only way for his companies to be profitable is when he's not involved in them.
Oh, yeah.
As soon as he does shit like the Cybertruck, it's a massive failure. When he buys Twitter and tries to run it from the top down, it loses half of its value. You know, he got kicked out of PayPal because he was trying to ruin it so thoroughly.
Elon, I'm saying this, you know, on the podcast. I am a hack. Please let me help you with your business. I will run it better. First things first, we're rebranding Tesla. You know what we're going to call it?
What's that?
I don't know. I was hoping you had a good idea and I could steal it.
Oh. What will we rebrand Tesla as? I don't know. I don't even know if you necessarily need to, right? because like that's the kind of thing where foundationally it's not bad. It's good branding, you
It is an
know.
objectively good name. I agree. It's a
All they
shame
need
he
to
never came up with
do,
it.
like, if I was to take over Tesla and I could make one decision, the only thing that I would change is I would put actual grills on their cars, or at
Actual.
least fake ones.
Mm.
Grills on the front. That's the one design language problem that I have, and it's a problem with EVs as a whole, right? Is that they are so desperate to compete with the ease of operation that comes with a gas car that they have sacrificed everything to the altar of efficiency and aerodynamics, when gas cars aren't doing that, you know? Like, you could do that with a gas car too, and it'll run better. You'll get better fuel economy, but they don't, because it looks cool. It's this visual language that we have built up over decades and generations that has been completely thrown in the garbage by tech bros who don't design cars, and it doesn't work. There's a reason a Ferrari still looks fucking cool today, or a Lamborghini, and it's not because they have smoothed over plastic on every square inch of the front of the body.
We have like a lot of EV like dealerships opening up in Grand Rapids lately. I know it's because the fucking tax credit, and they're actually like very cool vehicles. But it's always so funny to me because it reminds me of like those memes, like driving down the road. And like I live in a pretty modest neighborhood, all things considered. Like I live around real people, but like every time I start going to like the more ritzier parts or parts where near the dealership, I'll see those EVs coming around, and it always reminds me of like the dog inbred muzzle meme, where they're like dogs can't breathe properly like this, and it's like those cars with just like the flat edges.
Amazing.
Dude, all I'm saying is, and this might come off as a little sexist, but this is fucking funny, is you can't reenact the fucking White Snake Here I Go Again video on your car. It's not a car.
Absolutely agree. I will say, when I was up at Tanger Outlets a few weeks ago, maybe it was closer to a month ago. It's been a little while when I was there last. We talked about it because there's that Italian place.
Yeah.
As I was leaving it, I noticed there was a group of 20-somethings in one of the adjacent parking lots that were filming a music video on just their car. They're just fucking around. They're doing a music video. They're doing B-roll type shots. And it's just like, can you ever imagine somebody doing that with any current EV?
No, you
imagine
can't.
some relatively young, particularly from, I'm gonna, just for lack of a better word, more apt word, a bunch of young black guys going out and filming a music video for fun on an EV. You can't. That's not the culture.
EVs have no riz.
They don't. They really don't. They serve a really useful purpose, and they're, for obvious reasons, probably going to be the future of the way that cars are designed, but, like, I'm not happy about it.
Dude, like, I just want a little aerodynamicism. I know you don't need it, like, to like build the car that way because it's a little more efficient with an EV, but at the same time, vroom. Damn it, vroom.
Car culture is still a thing, even if they don't want to acknowledge it.
These
Even
soy
if you
boys
aren't aware of it. It's like the same thing with any cultural aspect, right? You don't have to be aware of it to be influenced by it.
Yeah, I don't even care for cars that much, but damn, dude, like, seeing a flat hooded car is unnatural. God doesn't like it, and I don't like it. Now, if you excuse me, I'm gonna go out and buy a Mustang.
Yeah.
Anything
Anyways,
else? Yeah.
I don't think I've got anything else.
Okay. And now, if you excuse me, I'm gonna go buy a Mustang. I'm Mr. Ryan, and I've been a Schmo.
And I'm Cairo, and I've been a Schmo.
And this has been the Two Schmoes Show.